WNBA Finals. And so I'll leave it there. I mean, I'm just obviously disheartened. I'm a human too. I have a family. I have 2 kids who are devastated by these comments. And so all I'll say is just
$28 million. That is the number that didn't just break the internet. It shattered the entire power structure of professional women's basketball. As we close out the year, we're looking at a landscape that is almost unrecognizable from just 2 years ago. And at the center of it all is a single contract that has the WNBA front office in a full-blown spiral. While Caitlin Clark is publicly smiling, rehabbing from a rough, injury-plagued stretch, and proudly holding up her new signature Nike line, the reality behind closed doors is far darker. Sources say Commissioner Cathy Engelbert is rapidly losing control of the narrative. This isn't just a sponsorship deal. This is a hostile takeover of influence. This isn't about sneakers. It's about a financial gap so massive it's turned teammates into rivals and exposed a league that was completely unprepared for its own savior. We're talking about a player who, in 2025 alone, earned nearly $20 million from sponsors, while the league she plays for paid her a base salary of just $114,000. That kind of disparity doesn't exist anywhere else in professional sports. For every dollar the WNBA paid Caitlin Clark, Nike and her partners paid her nearly $200. The commissioner is furious. Veterans are reportedly resentful. And the power dynamic has flipped upside down. The WNBA used to hold the keys. But now, with a $28 million war chest and a rival league looming on the horizon, Caitlin Clark holds the deed to the building. To understand why the commissioner is allegedly fuming, you have to go back to the moment the ink dried on that contract. When Clark left Iowa, the bidding war was unlike anything women's sports had ever seen. Adidas was there. Under Armour was there, reportedly even bringing Stephen Curry into the pitch meeting to sway her. They offered equity. They offered creative control. They offered everything. But Nike dropped the hammer. $28 million over 8 years, plus a signature shoe, something active legends like Aya Wilson hadn't even secured at the time. And here's the part insiders say truly drove the league office insane. This deal was bigger than the WNBA itself. For decades, the league controlled the marketing. They controlled the narrative. They decided who the stars were. But Nike effectively handed a rookie a kingdom that dwarfed the WNBA's own empire. This wasn't just a paycheck. It was a signal. It told the world that the biggest star in the building wasn't the W, it was Caitlin. And for a front office obsessed with collective success and brand control, that was a nightmare scenario. Nike didn't just buy a billboard. They bought influence. They bought the ability to market Clark as a global icon, completely independent of the WNBA schedule or its rules. And the timing couldn't have been worse. Just as the league was trying to negotiate a new media rights deal, their biggest asset signed a contract that made her league salary look like lunch money. It stripped the commissioner of her leverage entirely. How do you discipline, control, or mandate a player who makes 150 times her salary from a third party? You don't. You just watch. To understand the anger bubbling beneath the surface, you have to see this from Commissioner Cathy Engelbert's perspective. Engelbert has spent years trying to market the WNBA as a premier professional organization. She's a former CEO, a numbers person, who worked tirelessly to convince corporate America the league was a viable product. Then walks in a rookie whose shoe deal pays her more in a single year than the average WNBA player will earn in a 20-year career. It's a public humiliation of the league's business model. Every time a major outlet like ESPN or the Wall Street Journal talks about the Nike money, they're forced to mention her league salary in the same breath. In 2025, that number was widely reported at just over $114,000, including bonuses. And it exposes the financial cracks the commissioner has been trying to paper over. The speculation inside the league isn't that the front office is angry Clark is getting paid. It's that this deal proves the WNBA isn't the one signing the biggest checks anymore. It creates a brutal narrative that the WNBA is a side hustle for Caitlin Clark, while her real job is being a Nike athlete. That is a branding disaster for a league trying to assert authority. When the player becomes bigger than the shield, the commissioner turns into a figurehead. And Kathy Engelbert is not the type of leader who enjoys being a figurehead. And it gets worse. In 2025, Clark battled injuries that kept her off the court for nearly 70% of the season. In a normal league, a player who doesn't play doesn't generate revenue. But because of the Nike deal, Clark's brand never took a hit. She remained the highest-earning female basketball player in the world, while sitting on the bench. That terrified the league office. It proved the Caitlin Clark economy can survive without the WNBA. But can the WNBA survive without the Caitlin Clark economy? The empty seats during her injury absence answered that question, and the answer has the commissioner sweating. But the money was just the spark that lit the fire. Inside locker rooms, things have allegedly been toxic since day one. We all saw the clips from her rookie year. The hard fouls from Chindi Carter. The overly physical play from the Chicago Sky. The cold shoulders from legends like Diana Taurasi, warning that reality was coming. Insiders say the Nike deal poured gasoline on an already burning fire of resentment. There is a deep-seated wait-your-turn culture inside the WNBA. You have veterans who spent years playing overseas in places like Russia and Turkey for pennies, grinding their bodies down for a decade, just to receive a fraction of this attention. Then a rookie walks in with a $28 million bag and a signature shoe before playing a single professional minute. Human nature takes over. Tensions boil. We saw it immediately in the online discourse. When Aya Wilson, arguably the best player in the world at the time, didn't have a signature shoe while Clark did, fan bases went to war. Wilson was forced to publicly tweet that she wasn't jealous. But the narrative was already out there. The old guard felt disrespected. And who did they blame? The system. But they took it out on the beneficiary of that system, Clark. Now the commissioner is stuck playing referee in a league that appears to resent its own golden goose. It's a locker room divide that no amount of PR statements can fix. And it's tearing the unity of the league apart. You also have to remember the private flight controversy. For over 20 years, WNBA players flew commercial. Economy seat, middle rows, delays and layovers like everyone else. For years, players begged for charter flights. The answer was always the same: we can't afford it. Then Caitlin Clark arrives, and suddenly security concerns spike. The league somehow finds $25 million to fund a charter program. While this was a win for everyone, the optics were brutal. To veterans, it looked like the league ignored their safety for 2 decades. But the moment the golden child showed up, the checkbook opened. That breeds resentment. It creates a locker room dynamic where Clark represents new money. Money the old guard had to suffer without while building the league. The commissioner failed to manage that transition. And instead of a celebration, it felt like a capitulation to one player's stardom. Which brings us to the darkest theory circulating online right now, one that simply refuses to die. Why didn't the league step in sooner to stop the excessive physical targeting of Clark during those first 2 seasons? Some critics believe the commissioner's office intentionally stayed silent. The theory is that they were desperate to preserve the equality narrative. If they protected Clark, they'd be accused of favoritism. So they let the welcome to the league beatdowns happen. If that was the strategy, it backfired spectacularly. Instead of humbling her, it turned fans against the league. It made the WNBA look unprofessional, petty, and unsafe. And it made casual fans, the millions of new eyes Clark brought in, feel like the league was actively hostile toward the very player they tuned in to watch. And this is where the Nike deal comes roaring back into the picture. Now that Clark is a Nike signature athlete, she has a level of corporate protection the league can't touch. If the WNBA won't protect its asset, a multi-billion-dollar corporation absolutely will. Rumors have circulated that Nike representatives have had pointed conversations with league officials about player safety. When you have a $28 million investment on the floor, you don't allow her to be headhunted. The commissioner is now being squeezed from both sides. The players' union demanding equality, and corporate sponsors demanding their star be protected. And then there's the officiating. We all saw it. Game after game, Clark was blitzed, shoved, and face-guarded the full length of the court. In the NBA, if you touch a superstar like Luka or Steph Curry, the whistle blows immediately. In the WNBA, the whistle stayed silent. Why? Because the league was terrified of the optics of protecting the white girl. They were paralyzed by social media backlash. So they overcorrected in the opposite direction, allowing a level of physicality that bordered on assault. And now the commissioner is realizing that by trying to please everyone, she ended up pleasing no one. And we can't talk about the commissioner's fury without addressing the PR disaster of late 2024. That moment is still haunting the league today. Remember the Bird versus Magic comment? When asked about the toxic, and at times racist, abuse erupting between fan bases, Commissioner Engelbert didn't shut it down immediately. Instead, she compared it to the 1980s rivalry that helped save the NBA, essentially arguing that rivalries are good for business. The backlash was instant and brutal. The Players Association, led by Terry Jackson, released a scorching statement making it clear that hate speech is not marketing. Players like Breanna Stewart publicly criticized the commissioner's lack of leadership. Engelbert looked visibly furious in subsequent interviews, not because she was wrong in her mind, but because she had lost the room. She was trying to sell a narrative of growth. The players weren't buying it. That moment became the turning point. It signaled to the locker rooms that the commissioner was out of touch with the modern player. And where was Clark during all of this? Quietly stacking checks, staying out of the mud. Her silence spoke louder than any statement. It showed she didn't need to engage. Her leverage was already absolute. The commissioner looks at Clark and sees a player she can't control, backed by a fan base she doesn't fully understand, earning money the league can't come close to matching. But if you think the Nike deal is the only problem, you haven't been paying attention to what Breanna Stewart and Nafisa Collier just built. The launch of the unrivaled league was the final crack in the WNBA's monopoly. Debuting in early 2025, the 3-on-3 league offered something the WNBA had long resisted: real money and real equity. The average salary in Unrivaled sits above $220,000 for an 8-week season. Compare that to the WNBA's average of roughly $120,000 for a 5-month grind. The math is humiliating for the commissioner. A startup league in its first year is paying players nearly double, for half the work, compared to the established league that once held all the power. Caitlin Clark was the white whale for Unrivaled. And while she didn't suit up immediately, the mere existence of that option gives her, and every other star, enormous leverage. If the WNBA crosses her, she can play Unrivaled for 3 months, make double her league salary, and spend the rest of the year filming Nike commercials. The WNBA is no longer the only game in town. The front office understands that if Clark ever decides to jump ship exclusively, or simply play overseas and supplement with Unrivaled, the league's valuation takes an immediate hit. The commissioner isn't just fighting for control anymore. She's fighting for relevance. Now let's talk about 2025. It was supposed to be the year the WNBA fully capitalized on its momentum. Instead, injuries blew the plan apart. Clark appeared in only about 30% of the games. But here's the part that stunned everyone. Her income went up. In 2024, she earned roughly $11 to $12 million in endorsements. In 2025, despite spending months on the bench, that number climbed past $16 million. This drives the commissioner insane. Traditionally, when a star gets hurt, both the league and the player suffer. Relevance drops. Visibility fades. That didn't happen here. Clark's Nike ads kept running. Her jersey sales stayed at the top of the charts. The Clark effect proved immune to minutes played, and that makes her dangerous to the establishment. She doesn't need to play 40 games a year to be the face of basketball. She just needs to be Caitlin. This reality completely shifts the power balance heading into the next collective bargaining agreement. The league needs her on the court to sell TV rights and tickets. She doesn't need the court to fund her life. When one side needs the other desperately, and the other side is indifferent, the indifferent side always wins. And right now, thanks to Nike, Caitlin Clark is indifferent. And the media has played a massive role in turning that imbalance into a full-blown power struggle. For decades, the WNBA begged for coverage. They wanted ESPN. They wanted headlines. Well, they got them, just not the way they imagined. The media cycle around Caitlin Clark has been relentless, hypercritical, and often focused more on the league's failures than its successes. Every hard foul is dissected in 4K. Every empty seat at a non-fever game is memed. Every stumble by the commissioner becomes a headline. The WNBA wanted the spotlight, but they forgot the spotlight doesn't just shine. It exposes. That's where many of the furious commissioner rumors come from. Engelbert is constantly putting out fires sparked by the attention Clark brings with her. The league isn't driving the narrative anymore. It's reacting to it. And then there's the race war narrative the media has leaned into. It's been exhausting for everyone involved. The non-stop Clark versus Angel Reese framing. The racial undertones baked into fan debates. It's drained locker rooms across the league. The commissioner tried to repackage it as rivalry marketing, but the players rejected it outright. Now the league is walking on eggshells, terrified that one wrong comment or one misstep will ignite another firestorm, one that risks alienating either the new fans Clark brought in or the league's core player base. Here's the bottom line. The WNBA is broke compared to its players' true potential. The league has historically lost money, or barely broken even, depending on whose accounting you trust. They can't afford to pay Caitlin Clark $28 million. They can barely afford to pay her $100,000. So what happens when the employee is richer than the employer? Chaos. And Clark's camp knows exactly how underpaid she is by the league. They accept it for now because the WNBA still provides the platform that powers the shoe deal. But for how long? If Unrivaled expands, or if a European club shows up with a $5 million offer for a single season, the front office's furious reactions start to make sense. What you're seeing isn't anger. It's powerlessness. They know the current salary cap is a joke to players like Clark, Reese, and Buchers. They're trying to protect a system designed for 1997 while living in the financial reality of 2025. The Nike deal didn't just break records. It exposed the salary cap as an artificial constraint that holds stars back. The financial breakdown tells the story. The WNBA recently secured a media rights deal valued at roughly $2 billion over 11 years. That sounds massive, until you do the math. It comes out to about $200 million a year, split across 12 teams, soon to be 14. After operations, travel, marketing, facilities, and coaching staffs are paid, the slice left for player salaries is shockingly thin. The players know this. Clark knows this, but the viewership numbers tell a completely different story. During her rookie season, games featuring the Indiana Fever pulled audiences that rivaled NBA playoff games. Games without the Fever? Ratings dropped straight back to near-league averages. That data point is a weapon. Clark's agents can walk into any room and prove, mathematically, that she's responsible for a massive share of the league's growth. When you have that level of leverage, you don't ask for permission. You make demands. And rumors suggest